All right, the 2026 FIFA World Cup is still on, and this afternoon we talking about the performances of African teams so far within the competition. And I think a lot of people have shared their sentiments on the performances of African teams in this year's 2026 FIFA World Cup. Africa was previously having five spots or slots in the World Cup previously in the entire 32 team tournament. But of course, we've seen an increment in the numbers from 32 to 48. So Africa was given nine slots, and of course, another slot through playoffs, of which the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Leopards, won the African version of playoffs, went all the way to the Intercontinental or Interconfederation playoffs, where they defeated the Reggae Boys of Jamaica to secure the 10th African spot and that make it 10. That's the reason why we've seen 10 African countries in this year's World Cup. And of course, we began the World Cup with an African country in the opening ceremony game. That was South Africa, when they have a clash with Mexico, a team they played with in 2010 when South Africa hosted the competition, when they became the first African country to host the World Cup on home soil, which ended 1-1 in 2010. And in the rematch, what happened was Quinones scored first. And of course, we saw Raul Jimenez coming with the second goal, and that put the nail on the coffin on the Bafana setup. And unfortunately, the South African team lost by 2-0 in the opening ceremony game of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And we saw Morocco giving a magnificent performance in that game against Brazil. And maybe a lot of people talk about the fact that the Moroccan team, the Atlas Lions, are going to lose against the Seleção of Brazil. But Morocco became the first African country to reach semi-final in the last time out during Qatar 2022. And they didn't stand there. They continue with their magnificent performance with new coach Mahmoud Ouahabi, who came and took over from Walid Regragui, who left off just a few months to the start of the 2026 FIFA World Cup after the Moroccan team failed to win the AFCON 2025 when they hosted the competition. And we saw the Elephants of La Côte d'Ivoire in their first game, of course. We saw them beating Ecuador by a goal to nil. Amad Diallo, who came on in the second half, made sure Côte d'Ivoire got their 3 points, and that was a record because the Ivory Coast until that day has never beaten a team from South America in the history of the World Cup. Because remember in Germany 2006 they lost 2-1 against Argentina. In 2010 in South Africa they lost 3-1 against Brazil, and we all remember what happened in 2014 in Brazil when they lost 2-1 against Colombia, which was so another unfortunate incident that happened some 12 years ago. So Ivory Coast on their return ensured that they beat Ecuador in that 1-0 win. And we saw Tunisia also going in their match against Sweden, and it was quite unfortunate that Tunisia lost by a heavy margin, 5-1, which was a poor result on the part of the Tunisians, the Carthage Eagles. And as a result, they sacked coach Sabri Lanouchi, and they brought on board two-time African Cup champion in the shape of Hervé Renard, former coach of Saudi Arabia, who now has taken over the Carthage Eagles, and he will lead the team in the rest of the two games that they're going to play before the group stage ends. And that is how Tunisia started the 2026 FIFA World Cup in USA, Mexico, and Canada. And we saw the Cape Verdeans also entering as a debutant. They are one of the 4 debutants who are part of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And Cape Verde drew against 2010 World Cup champions, which was Spain. And goalkeeper Vozina gave a very good account of himself, and he gave a top-notch performance. The Blue Sharks of Cape Verde sat deep in that day, and they made sure they used counter-attack, and they played a very good game tactically just to prevent the Spaniards from scoring, and they had their results, which was a 1-1 draw on the part of the Cape Verdeans when they drew against Spain. And we saw the African champions, the Teranga Lions of Senegal, going against France, a team that they beat in 2002 when they made their debut at Japan Korea 2002. And unfortunately for the Senegalese this time around, they lost by 3-1. Kylian Mbappe coming with a brace, and we saw Bradley Bakola also coming with another goal. So the Teranga Lions, in the absence of their fans, some of them were being denied visa or entry into the United States. Was quite unfortunate incident. And in their first game against the French team, they lost by 3 goals to 1. And I saw Captain Koulibaly complaining about the fact that their fans were not being made to enter for the World Cup, which was another unfortunate incident that happened. So Senegal, the Teranga Lions, lost by 3 goals to 1. And we saw Egypt drawing against Belgium. And we saw Imam Ashur scoring Egypt's first goal in this tournament. And Egypt were quite well, they creditably performed on that day. And they were just on their way to winning their first ever game in the history of the World Cup since their debut performance or appearance in 1934. But unfortunately, Romelu Lukaku came with another idea, and of course, he had that match equalizer for the Belgians, and that game ended in a 1-1 draw when the Pharaohs of Egypt, 7-time African champions, drew 1-1 against Belgium in this year's 2026 FIFA World Cup. And we saw the Desert Foxes of Algeria. Unfortunately for them, they came face to face with the defending champions, Argentina. And Lionel Messi, the little big man, conjured magic, giving a hat-trick in his first record for like his first hat-trick in the history of the World Cup. And it was quite unfortunate that it was against a fellow African opposition, our African side, in the shape of the Desert Foxes of Algeria. So Algeria lost by 3 goals to 0 against Argentina in that game. And we saw the Democratic Republic of Congo giving a good account of himself. And on their return on the global stage since 1974, they give Portugal a trouble to deal with. And even though Joao never scored first, but Yohan Wissa made sure he came up with that equalizer. And that was quite a good result for the Democratic Republic of Congo. And of course, we saw the Black Stars of Ghana also winning in 90 minutes plus when Caleb Irinchi scored after receiving a pass from Thomas Brandon Asante. So this happens to be the scorecard of African countries at the 2026 World Cup. 2 wins, 5 draws, and 3 defeats. Not quite an encouraging one. And of course, it was a poor run, especially on the part of the Tunisians, the Algerians, the South. Four defeats rather. Yeah, 4 defeats because South Africa lost, Senegal lost, Algeria lost, and of course we saw the Tunisians also losing. So Egypt had a draw, DR Congo had a draw. We saw the Cape Verdeans also having a draw. So I mean, 4 defeats, 4 draws, and I mean we saw also Morocco drawing against Brazil. So 4 defeats, 4 draws, and then 2 wins. So that is we saw Tunisia losing, South Africa losing, Teranga Lions of Senegal losing, Algeria losing, and of course for the draws it has been Egypt, it has been Cape Verde, DR Congo, and of course Morocco. So those 2 wins came from West African neighbors, Ghana and the Elephants of La Côte d'Ivoire. So the South Africans are going against Czech Republic today in that game, that mouth-watering encounter. Let's see whether South Africa can come up with a good performance in their second game. And of course, the Moroccan team will be playing against Scotland in their next game. Ivory Coast travel to the BMO field in Toronto, Canada, where they meet Germany in that second group encounter in their group. And of course, we're going to be seeing Hervé Renard playing his first game as Tunisian manager against Japan in that second group encounter. And we're going to witness what Cape Verde will also have to show us in their second group encounter against Uruguay. And Egypt will be playing New Zealand. I think Egypt should fancy their chances against New Zealand. They should try as much as possible this time around and get a good result. Of course, Algeria will be playing against Jordan, which is also quite another light opposition that Algeria should be able to manage. And of course, the big one, Senegal will be playing against Norway. Norway had a 4-1 win against Iraq, which was a very good result for the Norwegians also on their return at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And we're going to be seeing the Democratic Republic of Congo playing against Colombia in that game. And of course, the Black Stars of Ghana will have it a big one. The Ghanaian team will have to tango against the Three Lions of England in another mouth-watering encounter. So this has been the scorecard of African teams in the 2026 World Cup. Not quite encouraging, but let's see what happens in the second round of games, whether we're going to be seeing an encouraging performance from the African contingent at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This has been the podcast channel. Thank you.